Alright crew, so in this video I'm going to show you how to export your images using Lightroom. It is my preferred editing software, but I do also want to preface that I use both Lightroom and Photoshop as a way to manipulate and call my images. But it's a two-step process that I normally will do. I'll use Lightroom to do my batch editing and culling. What I mean by culling is editing down using their Lightroom's rating system. I like to use the stars um, to choose out, my picks, so to speak. And so here we are using Lightroom. Currently, I have the folder that I want to look into, which is has the talent's name. But underneath it's also showcasing the three subfolders, which I did a little bit of location scouting, so I have a folder for that. I shot with two cameras, so I divided those raw images in two separate folders: raw D800 and then a raw Z7. So I'm going to narrow it down since collectively there's 1,234 photos that it's looking at here in this middle part and also in my film strip. So I'm just going to go ahead and click on my Z7 folder, and since there's only 752 photos, now it's taking into consideration all the images that I shot with that particular camera. But since I already did my culling down, I'm going to go in here in the bottom right and hit rated. And it's going to default to the 1-star rating. And so the images that I've selected that did receive 1 star, out of the 752 photos, I've narrowed it down to 324 photos. Now, for the sake of this demonstration, since I did use a Z7, it is pulling really large files. I'm going to go ahead and narrow that down even more by doing 2 stars and see which ones, or how many rather, have received a 2-star rating and above, right? So it's going to give me all 2 stars plus 3 stars and 4 stars and 5 stars if there are any. And there's still 68 photos, but I'm going to narrow that down even more. So I'm going to go ahead and hit 3, so it's going to say 3 stars and higher. And there's 21 photos that I've marked that I thought were like awesome. So I gave it 3 stars. And then of course there's a few that have 4 stars. Now these are images in its raw state. There might be some virtual copies of images where I wanted to do maybe a side edit, a side color grading to kind of give me a variation of what the overall outcome could be like. And so I won't talk about virtual copies in this video just yet. So let me just go ahead and get right to it. There's 21 photos that I want to export. I can either do it a couple ways. Since all of these images are already selected, or highlighted rather, I can just hit export. Or if it's not selected, then typically you'll only see one box highlighted. So I'll do like Command A to select all of them, and then so it's selecting all 21 photos. And I can do Control left click here, and then it'll bring me this dialog box, and I can hit export and then export there. Or I can actually do it the traditional way, the old school way, which is going to the whole file export up here. And not that it's that much longer, but that's just another way of exporting, getting to the export dialog box. Okay, but I just kind of out of habit, I always just click here and then Control left click export. So I'll hit export there, and then I just start from top to bottom. So when the dialog box opens, it's going to confirm with you how many files you want to export to, where to my hard drive. So hard drive, it could be external hard drive or computer hard drive. It really, actually, I'm not quite sure which one this one is referencing to, other than what I will say is that you can be more focused on where to put it here in this specific dialog box. So export to specific folder. Currently it's saying, okay, I want to export to your desktop, so you can see the file structure here. This is recognizing my computer. I named this my computer, Ryan Ninja Studio, and then my desktop, and then in a folder called Photo 370 Export Demo. Now I've already created that folder, because I already, actually this is the second time that I'm doing this pre-recording. The initial time my computer crashed. I am using my older laptop because that's the first computer that I downloaded Camtasia, which is the recording software that I'm using to create this video for the demonstration. It ended up crashing. So that folder already exists. Okay, so it's Photo 370 export demo, and then if you want to include a subfolder in there, then you can do that, but it's not necessary. I just go ahead and put it there directly into the folder that I want to put it in. And then here is where I can create custom file names, which I encourage you guys to do, because when you shoot straight out of camera, it'll give you this raw file name that's pretty typical and common in all camera brands. I've actually I guess custom made a custom file name in my camera to include my initials, so it says RAM, RAM, and then it'll spit out a number. So here in the dialog box, I want to continue to reference that file number, but I also want to include my actual name in the file name itself. So I put Ryan Angel Meza, and then here's giving me an example, right? So I wanted to include the original file name. So if you look just down here at the bottom, so since we can still see the film strip, whatever image that it's kind of selecting right now, it says RAM 7125. So once we've exported the images, I can expect to see an image with this text name and then referencing the number here found in the raw file, so 7125. So I should find an image that has that that number as well. There are other options to choose from. Go ahead and play with those if you'd like, but I find this one to be the best one because I can include my name and then the original file number. And the importance of that is, as long as I have that number, I can always go back to the raw file itself and then make additional edits if needed, or do a totally different edit altogether. Then I'll just scroll down. So whenever you submit images for Canvas, or even upload to your website or any web platform, it's always good to have your color space set to sRGB. I don't want to complicate things by telling you what these different color spaces are, other than that sRGB is used for web stuff, and then Adobe RGB is used for printers. Okay, so whenever you're doing printing, if you want to export a full resolution file, then you would select this and then make sure that you're not downsizing the file. But this demonstration will show you how to downsize and change the format for submissions for this class. So I'm going to go ahead and hit sRGB. It is a JPEG format, which is a common format for images. And I'm going to scroll down, and here is the resizing specifications. In the details for the submission box, I told you to, I think I may have said 1800 pixels. So you can go ahead and do that. Just make sure it's set to long edge, and all that long edge means is the long portion of the image itself. You always have a short side because you're obviously it's a picture, so one side's going to be shorter than the other. So on the long edge, so this is the long edge, it'll reduce it down to 2200 pixels. And I'll just give you a side note. I've changed it from, I did 1800 before, but now it's 2200 pixels because websites now, that's kind of their specifications whenever you want to upload images to their platform. I use Squarespace, and I believe that's the resolution size that they want, since it's what's the word? I forgot the word. Where it resizes for various viewing. So of course it's going to need a certain number of pixels whenever you're viewing for a desktop computer versus a phone, so it'll downsize it accordingly or upsize it if it needs those extra pixels. So I have set it now to 2200 pixels. You can do that like that if you want, or just put 1800 pixels, which is what I think I put in the Canvas description. And then output sharpening, I just like to go ahead and do a little bit of it, so I do sharpen. There's a couple options here. There's one for screen, which is obviously for web stuff, viewing on your computer, on your phone. And then if you're doing printing, you would just choose the appropriate paper type. And then there are just levels of the amount of sharpening that you want. I just typically leave it in standard. And then by default, I wanted to include all metadata. And what metadata is just information regarding the file, what camera was used, and if you included your copyright information, any tags. So if you just look over here on the right hand side under it says keyword tags. I have some already made, and that's embedded in the in my file. So I just hovered over it and it says keyword count 17, which means I have 17 keywords embedded in my image, which is good for search engine optimization. And I won't go through watermarking just yet, since it could be simple, but it could be also complicated. So since this video is about just exporting, I'll just leave it at that. And then my very last option here is my post-processing. I will have it show me in Finder, which is just once it's done exporting, it'll open up a dialog box, or my folder rather, of where those exported images are now sitting, which should sit under my desktop under this folder name. So I've selected 21 photos. I'm going to hit export. It's probably going to give me a somewhat of an error message saying that there's probably a similar file because I already did this video just a moment ago. So I'm going to hit export. Notice it says the following files already exist. So for that reason, I'm just going to hit skip, right? Because my image is already in there. But typically, if there is no files, it would just go ahead and process, and you should see 21 photos since that is what I see here in my film strip. All right. So so that's how you export your images. Let's just pretend that it did export it already, and I'm just gonna go to my desktop really fast, and what did I label it? Export demo, right? So Photo 370 export demo. I went to my desktop here, and then these are my 21 files. So notice how has the image file name in the image file, and it's referencing the number of my raw file. And if you look here under dimensions, the long edge of the image is set to 2200 pixels, which resulted in a 1.4 megabyte file JPEG image, which is what you want. Let me see if I can do one really interesting thing here. So if I go to File, so check it out. So if I click on the image here and File, Get Info, so this is what I mean by the metadata. So this is, keep in mind, this is the exported image file that I already processed, and so it has keywords already in it, embedded in it. So if anyone wants to do some kind of Google search for Sacramento studio or editorial or Northern California, there's a potential chance that my image will come up because I've actually designed it to have these keywords in it. It'll show you the camera that you shot it in, right? So Nikon Z7, the color space that you exported the image file to, and then also any additional details. So I included a caption to include photo by my name, Ryan Angel Meza. So all that is embedded, and that's what metadata is, and is a very useful tool if you want to be discoverable on the World Wide Web. So there you go. That's how you export using Lightroom. And the next video I'll show you how to use Photoshop, but it will be tedious. So your best bet is to go ahead and use Lightroom for all your culling, your editing, or your base editing, and your export processing needs. All right. Talk to you guys later. Thanks for watching.